Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson. He's the star of the show, Joel Sherman. We're going to talk about the Yankees baseball. The Yankees lose a series against the Red Sox after taking 3 out of 4 against the Royals last week. Joel, we haven't talked to you in a couple weeks here. We got a big week coming up. How you doing, man?
Should I do that like faux Madonna? She lived in London for a little bit and she ended up with an accent bullshit? Or no, I won't do that. No, I covered the games in London and then stuck around with my boys to do a couple of days of vacation. And yeah, I missed a week of Yankee baseball. Hopefully I'm all caught up and I'll have something to offer. I'll just follow you into the center of the sun, Ryan. So wherever you're going, I'm going with you.
I hear you, man. Listen, I appreciate you as always for just giving us some time and talking about this. Tommy and I held down the fort last week, and this week we wanted to.
Best show ever, right?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. We missed you. We missed you. There were some moments where me and Tommy were talking to each other and saying, "Man, Joel would kill us for what we were saying right now." But as we head into this week, we'll talk about last night with the Red Sox. This is a huge week for the Yankees, as I talked about. They face the Orioles, they face the Braves. Joel, we start off with first pitch. The Yankees are now 9-10 against the AL East. The Orioles are 17-6 versus the AL East. There's a narrative out there. Tommy and I had talked about last week. The Yankees and against their division rivals, they just aren't able to beat some of these. The Red Sox and the Orioles seem to have their number here lately. When you're trying to stack up these wins, it's more important, for you to get those wins in your division, especially if you want to win your division in the AL East. So when you're looking at how this Yankees team has performed against their division, is it concerning that they just can't get these wins and stack them up against the Orioles and Red Sox lately?
Yeah, obviously, to me, Ryan, I look at it outside the AL East, and I recognize how small a sample this is, and I'm usually the one who's trying to point out small samples. But to me, there's been, at least through nearly about 40-45%, wherever we are of the season, 4 kind of super teams this year: Dodgers, Yankees, Phillies, and Orioles. And the Yankees have played series against the Dodgers and Orioles and lost the series. And this is a team that has essentially championship or bust about it. So I'm not going to judge you by if you could, kick the crap out of the Little Sisters of the Poor, though you've got to kick the shit out of the Little Sisters of the Poor to get to 95 plus wins and get in. The thing I would point out about what's important for me as I look at it is, if you look at the other 5 divisions, nobody's popping champagne today, but there are comfortable leads in the other 5 divisions. As you know, one of the storylines of this season is how bad the second and third wildcard teams, especially in the NL, but to some degree, even the AL, are going to play, what the numbers are going to be. And the teams getting the wins are the teams leading the division. The only exception is the Yankees and Orioles are probably the 2 best teams in the American League. And this reminds me of, was it 18 where the Yankees won 100 games, but the Red Sox won 103, and the Yankees finished second. You could have made an argument we're the second, third best team in the league, but then you are then at the mercy of a singular wild card game. Now if you finish second, you're going to be at the mercy of best 2 out of 3. And you know how that goes. Cole has a bad day, or Hill has a bad day, or Rodon, who's ever in this, and suddenly you're on the brink after being no worse than the second best team in the league all year. So these games against the Orioles, and they've already lost 3 out of 4 to them this year, take on some resonance, because I know I know the argument will be these last few years, there's that argument rest versus rust, where you have that 4 or 5, 6 days off, and a lot of those teams are getting eliminated. You'll go 30 for 30 with managers and GMs. Nobody wants to have more risk. And 2 out of 3 against any opponent is more risk. The Yankees are better than the Red Sox. They just lost 2 out of 3. And so you don't want to get into that situation. So it heightens the importance of these head-to-head games, both because of the AL East and also because the Yankees have to judge themselves against something. And in the round robin where they'll play the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Orioles a lot, I'm curious what their record will be. Right now, it's a losing record.
Right. And for me, Joel, and this is another thing I wanted to ask you, with the way the schedule works now too, it feels like there's even more of an emphasis on these division games because you don't play your division opponents as much anymore. So these games against the Orioles coming up and those games against the Red Sox, that was the first series against Boston this year. Like that's that's what's interesting is like you just played your first series against Boston in June. That's how the new MLB schedule works. These games become so vitally important because those will stack up when you have a team like the Orioles right on your heels. Only 1.5 games back. They're same in the loss column. So, like we said, this week against the Boston Baltimore is just going to be so vital for the team to actually try and come out with a series win. So, for you, do you think that the team recognizes, hey, we're not going to see these guys as much as we normally do? Like, we have to get these wins. Like, they'll put more into it, the rest versus rust, like you said.
Well, obviously, they want to have the best record in the division, the best record in the league, and the best record in the majors because that comes with all kinds of perks come October if you can do that. They also very badly want to prove that they're not the 2022 Yankees who sprinted out to this kind of start and then won the division, but kind of did it on fumes and Aaron Judge's back, historic back, that season. They want to be a strong team all year. And I'll throw in one other thing, and I know we mentioned it when we did a show earlier when they lost those 3 out of 4 in Camden Yards. To me, they've been tortured for about the last 7-8 years by the Astros, eliminated 4 times in the playoffs by them. And the Astros were built very much like this Oriole team has been built, which was a tank job into getting terrific first-round picks and difference-making players. And look, Mike Elias worked for those Astro teams. Sig Megdal, one of his most important lieutenants, worked for those teams. And they're doing the same thing. And the Yankee nightmare would be is, wow, the Astros are finally showing signs of this sinking. Oh, here are the Orioles to take over. And now for another 7-8 years, torture us with high draft picks, young, athletic, timely. The Yankees need to throw a punch here, to me, in June even, to say, you're not those Astros. We can certainly on our home field take care of business.
Yeah, it's. I know a lot of Yankees fans are going to be tuned in as always with this, but it just feels a special, and I think it's going to feel like a playoff game every single night coming up this week. Joel, I'm going to change up here, go Radio Irrational here next because I want to talk about last night's game and the Red Sox series a little bit. Radio Rational take I got for you is the Yankees might have a problem here with the run game. Last night, 9 stolen bases. I know that's an outlier. Hasn't happened since 1915, I believe, the last time it's happened in a Yankees game. Jose Trevino, platinum Gold Glove winner as a framer, as a catcher himself, but he's got the second worst pop time in Major League Baseball among catchers, meaning his catch, throw, release, it's the second slowest in baseball, and his throws to the base are the slowest in baseball as well. So, I heard David Cohn mention last night as well in the broadcast. A lot of it was on Stroman. Sometimes he was doing his full wind-up leg kick that was just pretty much accepting the runner stealing these bases and putting Trevino in a bad spot. And there's a combination here. It's not just the catcher, it's the pitcher, how their windup is, and the infielders as well. Aaron Boone recognized it last night, said, I expect other teams to try and do the same thing on us as well. So how do you look at this? I mean, Baltimore's got some speedsters on their bases. Is this something that you could see a lot of other teams trying to expose on the Yankees on the base pass?
Yeah, as usual, Ryan, I have multiple thoughts on it. Number one, there's nothing that every organization likes to brag about more these days than how many people they have working in their front office and how prepared they are for every series. How the fuck did nobody else do this to them? Like, can everybody stop? This is like the spring training thing. Like, we worked on fundamentals. We're going to be better at fundamentals. And then the first pickoff, the first rundown play of the season inevitably gets fucked up. And I sit and go, what did you do for 6 weeks again? Can you stop fucking bragging? And to me, that Jose Trevino's pop times and arm strength and the fact that he does the low down stance hides in plain sight. And that Marcus Stroman is slow to the plate. And that Marcus Stroman does put a lot of guys on base. Walks, singles. He's essentially a ground ball guy. He defies kind of the extra base hit and the home runs, but there's guys on first base. How have we played nearly half a season and people haven't taken advantage of this? That's one. Number two, now I do think teams will begin to take advantage of it because the other thing is teams did know it, but are so risk avert that they refuse to do it. The Mets had this problem substantially, especially when Omar Narvaez was catching early this season. And yet there'd be games where teams didn't try it. And I would be sitting and going, do they not get like a newspaper subscription? Do they not, like, what don't they have here that they're not taking advantage? So I think the Orioles will not be risk avert. I think they'll go for it. I have seen with the Mets, and as we've seen with the league, we thought the stolen base numbers would be gigantic, and they have gone up. But people haven't run crazy because pitchers have learned better pickoff throw. I don't know if you watch like Trevor McGill, who's a big guy you wouldn't think is a great athlete, really improved his pickoff move. Like I was watching it yesterday. He picked the guy off yesterday, Kim from the Padres. So guys are working on their moves more. Guys are working on hold times more. There's ways to counteract this. And the Yankees are going to have to go to school, especially. So funny to think about, like, oh, when Austin Wells isn't catching, right? With all the narrative around that, they're going to have to go to school and try to slow down running games a great deal. And I do think it's often on the pitcher. Is the pitcher athletic enough to be able to see, have some peripheral vision, change up times, have a good slide step? It is a reminder that even in an age when teams want to hit home runs, pitchers are usually worse with runners on because you are distracting them in some way, or they can't go from a full windup, some combination of stuff. So when people say you can't win hitting singles, I'm like, I get it. You better hit some home runs. But putting guys on base, especially athletic guys on base, does have a disturbing factor. But last night became embarrassing for the best team in the American League. They were humiliated at Fenway Park, a place where, clearly they don't like that feeling as if they like it anywhere. So I think there's rationality to this one. It is an issue. I think the Yankees are a well-organized team. I think that they'll go to school on this and try to do something about it. But in the short run, I think the Orioles, who have that thing where they like to peck at the Yankees now, are definitely going to peck at the Yankees where they have opportunity to do so.
Yeah, it would not shock me to see Gunnar Henderson, all those guys running wild on the Yankees this week. I mean, it's just, like you said last night, it just, Trevino, he said, we talked about this pregame or leading up into the series that this could be a possibility, but yet it still happened on Sunday. And it just was that whirlwind force of, you got the combination of Stroman, who's not really great with the long wind up, and then Trevino's not great with the pop time. It became that perfect combination.
I'm curious to see how this is handled, because Stroman is incredibly athletic.
Yes.
As probably good an athletic pitcher as there is in the major leagues, and is bright. So I think that combination should suggest, unless he thinks his stuff is so short, if he does not do a more exaggerated motion, that he should be able to counteract this better if he goes to school on it a little. So I am going to be interested, and I am going to be interested who he matches up with catching-wise the next few times out.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Austin Wells has been his catcher for most of the season this year.
Yeah, it feels like that's a guy they share.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Stroman did say post-game last night, it's not on Trevi, it's probably more on me. I need to do better at a job holding the runners and maybe being a little quicker to the plate. They have speed and a bunch of guys in that lineup that can run. It makes it incredibly tough with the pitch clock, the pitch averse. It's just tough. We've got to do a better job. So they recognize last night was unacceptable. You can't have that happen. And that's the reason why you lost the game.
Those are rules working perfectly then. Right? Like yes. Stroman is presenting that as a problem. And of course, he's a pitcher. A hammer sees, like everything is a nail, right? So anything that would create a higher run scoring environment, a pitcher is going to treat like a problem. But these rules were put in place to create greater action on the field, both the clock and bigger bases, fewer disengagements from the rubber, so fewer throwovers. So that's a perfect example of rules working. And I've wondered for a year and a half why more teams aren't trying to take advantage of it. And ultimately is people think they don't get fired if they don't take risk. So they're risk avert. And I'm surprised that especially teams that aren't that good, don't decide, we're going to lose. Let's at least lose being pains in the fucking ass here and kind of going after it.
Yeah, no, I agree, Joel. And speaking of things you're looking forward to seeing, I want to go to Do Up here. I got to ask you, the 3 things that you are looking forward to watching in this upcoming series against the Orioles, what are they?
Yeah, I think I hit on probably number 1 through 3, which is I think the Yankees, even as the team currently in first place, have the pressure on them and need to show that they could beat this team, especially at home. There's a team that's now down Kyle Bradish, John Means. Like, they've had no injury excuses. Baltimore, lower payroll, more injuries. So they're going to do it. So I would say number 1, that's the biggest thing. I think I love this series. I'm going to be at the games. I want to see it. I want to see these at least 27 innings and see how it goes. I think it's as interesting as you could get in June for where are 2 teams. Because I think part of it is, Ryan, we've talked a little bit on this show. The Yankees, to me, are a very good team, but they've played over their heads for like 40-45%. Their starting pitching, and it's unbelievable to say this, without Cole, has remained incredibly healthy. Now they've had the Clark Schmidt injury, but Potita's been fine as a substitute guy. Their starting pitching has been great and relatively healthy. And I don't think Stroman is a 2.8 ERA guy. I think he's probably a 3.5, 3.6. So that means he's probably going to pitch to 4 something the rest of the year. I don't think Rodon is that guy. I don't know who Luis Gil is. So Cole's coming back at a great time for them. It's ideal because it feels like that part of the team in particular could use a little bump, especially after losing Schmidt.
In your heart of heart, do you think Garrett Cole's coming back in this series against the Orioles?
I suspect he's going to start Wednesday's game, and I have no insight here.
No, yeah.
I wonder if they keep Petit around, and if they, and send down like Marinaccio, someone like that, and like piggyback the game if Cole can't get you 5 or 6 the first time through. But I feel like, I wonder if it was any other team, and I know they're trying not to make an emotional decision. They're playing the long game for 162 games this year and for Cole and his career. But I do wonder, with the Orioles in town, do they feel a little bit like, why save it? If he's ready to go, why have him face Syracuse or whoever they're playing this week? These are the Orioles. We want these games as much as possible. I know they try to take the emotion out of it. I think it would be hard. And if I was just throwing out one other thing I am thinking about in this series, I am thinking about the 2 shortstops. So Andy Volpe had a bit of a slump recently, but he's having a very good second season, a growth season. And all signs are he's going to be a very good player in the major leagues. The guy picked 10 picks after him might win the AL MVP in Gunnar Henderson. He's right there with Soto. He's right there with Judge. He's right there with Bobby Witt Jr. So, you're looking at American League shortstops. It's Witt Jr. It's Henderson. Carlos Correa is having a renaissance season with Minnesota. Corey Seager, when he's been healthy this year, has kind of been crazy. Anthony Volpe's having a wonderful year. Is he even a top 5 AL shortstop?
It's a great question, Joel. I've thought about that too.
And he's been the Yankees' 3rd best player. And this is not a knock. It's a little bit like when you look at all NBA teams, and they're, at least the old way where you had to pick 2 guards and 2 forwards, 2 centers, where you're looking at and say, well, there's only 3 teams and there's 10 really good guards. Who's going to be first team, second team? I'm going to have 4 left. Volpe is having a really good year, and I just think that their careers are going to be on this arc because it's the same draft, and I don't think the Yankees are going to regret drafting Volpe and talking him out of Vanderbilt, a New Jersey kid, grew up a Yankee fan, kind of fits the team. But you are looking at what probably is going to be your number 1 rival for a little bit here with a shortstop who seems like he might be great. Certainly has played that way for a year and a half now since he came up. A lot of guys have struggled early in their career. This guy, I mean, Jackson Holiday couldn't stay on the team. Gunnar Henderson is outperforming Jackson Holiday, who was 1-1, right? Now, that might change. Jackson Holiday, a lot of pedigree is that, obviously, and being a number 1-1. I expect at some point he'll be a very good player. But the Henderson-Volpe thing is interesting to me as well, within the kind of like smaller story within the bigger story of how this series goes. Because I do think this is a fascinating 3 days from Tuesday to Thursday.
And finally, to wrap this discussion up about this series, do you ultimately think this could be the ALCS preview right here?
Well, of course, but I also believe that if I would have told you the NLCS preview at this time last year involved the Arizona Diamondbacks, you probably wouldn't have expected that. I think, again, I hate to kind of be self-referential that what we talked about before, but I'm sure on the show, I don't believe the playoffs are a complete crapshoot, but they have crapshoot elements about them. And I don't, the Red Sox embarrassed the Yankees yesterday. They won this series, but the Yankees are a better team than the Red Sox. You just see the stuff that can happen in a short series. And there is going to be this moment this year, and we'll end up talking about it. The Yankees are going to play a team far worse than the Red Sox and get swept. And we're going to be sitting going, how did they get swept by the Rockies or the Pirates or whoever shows up on the thing? It's because it's baseball. Crazy shit happens in 3 and 5 day bursts. The Phillies are not playing great right now either. They're down a little. So I almost wonder if there's some parallel there. The Phillies are really good too. I didn't think they were as good as they're playing. The Yankees are really good, but I didn't think they were as good as they're playing. So over 100, the greatest truth serum in sports is 162 games. You just can't lie about it. You can't fake your way to a certain number of wins. Now, you can fake your way into the playoffs these days with 3 wild cards. You could get to 83, 84, 85. But 162 games is going to reveal your strengths, your weaknesses, your character, your fortitude. And I do think the Phillies and Yankees are very good. If the World Series was the Yankees and Phillies, I wouldn't be shocked. But I don't think there is either is as good as they've played to this date. And I think it's because I'm not sure that either starting pitching is as good as it's been to this point of the year.
Yeah, and I think both starting pitching groups are going to be to the full test. These are powerful lineups. These are really good lineups that they're going up against.
And the Orioles just beat the Phillies.
Exactly. I mean, that was a great series too if you were watching that one this weekend. So real quick, before we get to Hogan Analytics, I want to wrap up a couple things here with the Yanks. I want to address real quick. The bottom half of the lineup last night in the 7th inning, I really want to ask you this because this has been bugging me since I watched it last night. Bases loaded, nobody out. Anthony Rizzo goes out after the collision at first base. We don't know how bad that injury is. He landed on his right hand. That wrist area looked like he was holding that.
I think the pitch of the game is the 3-1 pitch to Torres.
That's what I was getting.
I think it's the
3-0. I understand not taking that first one, but the second one though, and Boone said it was okay. Like he was looking to see another one if it was going to be in the zone. It's like, come on, Glaber. Like this is your moment. You had not a great season. You
got to stay away from that guy's the vicious sweeper. And at 3-0, 3-1, you're going to stay away from the vicious sweeper. As we saw, I think LeMahieu ended up hitting on 3-1.
Yes.
And hit the ball well.
Yes.
But flew out. I think that pitcher is a guy you don't want to go 2 strikes on. Because I think 2 strikes, even when he's threatening a walk, he's going to throw it because you have to be in swing mode. You can't just take it and hope it's a sweeper. So I think I understand that at 3-0 with the bases loaded in that situation, tying run at third, you probably have to take a pitch.
Right.
But I don't think you take 2 pitches. So I thought that as much as anything was kind of and look, it might have gotten messed up anyway. The Yankee relief pitchers didn't pitch well. Boston continued to run on them so that maybe they score the 4th run there or a 5th run and they still lose 9-5.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But I did think in that moment, and we're probably going to talk about this a lot over the next month because we're getting closer and closer to July 30th.
I know what you're going to bring up here. I got it.
So I think the Yankees, when they're really good, Brian Cashman tries to fill every bucket. And maybe it won't be the starting pitching bucket this year, but maybe it will be. Maybe they'll have another injury, who knows, or somebody will go backward here, or they'll think Hill needs rest. But if the Yankees are good enough, Brian Cashman has enough track record that I think he's going to get a starter, at least one reliever, and a position player to add to the depth of the lineup. Because maybe Rizzo bounces back or LeMahieu bounces back, and let's even see where Rizzo is physically. But the odds are that they both don't. Gleyber Torres has done enough this year to suggest maybe he'll be good, but it's not going to be like the past 2 years. So I think that he'll try to find it's going to be tough because I think the bats are easier to find in the outfield, and they don't need help there. They need it someplace on the diamond. But I'm sure the Yankees are already digging deep and are sitting and kind of looking at that and a wild card and wondering, is anyone going to trade besides Colorado and Miami, besides the White Sox? And those teams are terrible because they don't have enough good players. So, and if you don't have a lot of sellers as you know, it's basic capitalism. If there aren't a lot of sellers, the prices are going to be high, in part because you'll have 10, 12 teams all trying to get the same stuff.
Right.
So, having said that, when Brian Cashman's team is good, and I think he knows this is a very good team, he is aggressive in late July. The Yankees usually home in on a guy or two. And I'd be surprised if they don't check off boxes, certainly a relief pitcher or two. And, if I were betting today, at least one reliever, a position player, and maybe a starter.
Okay, so that's how you would. Hey, maybe that turned into a duo up there. How would you rank the three positions you would trade for right there if you were Brian Cashman into late July? I mean, this next month's going to be crucial, Joel, to see how it plays out with those position players.
I wouldn't be surprised if they acquired two relievers. Because I think at this point they know they don't really have a good lefty. So if you told me they got Jojo Romero from St. Louis, if St. Louis fell out of it, or they got Tanner Scott or Andrew Nardi from Miami, who are definitely not in it, somebody like that, plus somebody who they think could pitch the 8th or 9th inning as a kind of addition to Holmes and safety net against Holmes if there's any blow up.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. The lineup, that bottom half, Trevino, great pop last night. That's why I wanted to ask you about, Gleyber, DJ, now Rizzo. Got to start getting production. And now we're going to see, probably with the Rizzo injury, we're probably going to see more Oswaldo Cabrera, Jahmai Jones. We'll see what happens there. And
you'll see with Baltimore. Baltimore has a longer lineup.
Yeah.
Than the Yankees. There's just more good hitters in that Baltimore lineup.
Yeah, and no doubt. Joel, let's get into Hogan Analytics. We're bringing our PA, Tommy Hogan. He's going to give us a stat.
What's up, guys? I wanted to get into what I think was my favorite moment of the week, my favorite at-bat of the week, and that was the one pitch that Alex Verdugo saw in his first at-bat back in Fenway. Took it back into the center field seats. You could see how much it meant to him. He's going around the bases saying, let me hear it. So it had me go back to the offseason a little bit, and it was number one or number two on the Yankees' needs this offseason was to fill the hole in left field. Joel, do you know which Yankees left fielder led the team in WAR last season?
Well, so it's going to be somebody who probably played like 4 games and just wasn't negative, right?
There's 2 right answers. I will say there's 2 right answers because there's 2 players tied for the lead in WAR.
I'll just to say something, I'll say Oswaldo Cabrera.
No, it was not. He's on the negative 0.1. Do you want another guess?
No, because again, I think it's probably going to be somebody who didn't play much. Right,
He played quite a bit. Jake Bowers and IKF. They played quite a bit in left field, probably about 40, 50 games each. Those guys led the Yankees.
I think you just defined the 2023 Yankees, by the way.
Yeah, those guys scream left fielders right there.
Exactly. IKF, the starting shortstop on the team the year before, now the left fielder in 23. They had 0.4 WAR. Also, there was 10 guys that played an inning in left field. All 10 of them had a negative defensive WAR. But Verdugo this season so far, 1.2 WAR and a 4 defensive WAR. So they've really filled in that hole in left field. He's on pace for a 2.6 WAR season, which is what he did last year. They're now 6th in all of baseball in left field WAR. Last season, they were 27th. The only teams worse were the Marlins, White Sox, and Giants. And now they're 7th. Sorry, 7th in all of baseball in WAR this season from left field. So it was a very cool moment. It was something that the Yankees, they got their left-handed bat to complement Judge, and they were finally able to fill the hole in left field. Now it is only for a season, so we'll see if they can do it again next year. They might not be able to re-sign Verdugo or something like that, but they've been able to fill in that left field hole, and we saw it with one pitch to start the series in Boston.
Well, I assume that Judge and Dominguez will play left and center field in some combination. I was not pro the acquisition of Verdugo. The Yankees liked Verdugo very much. They tried to acquire him on a few different occasions before even last offseason. I have such high regard for Alex Cora as a manager, and my thought was, if you have a lot of problems playing for Alex Cora in Boston, what is that going to look like in New York? Perhaps because he's in his walk year, perhaps maybe the Yankees have a better leadership fabric in the clubhouse, or with, the way Aaron Boone tends to kind of help inflate up people. Whatever the combination is, he's been a terrific complementary player because you've got to have somebody who can play the field in left field in Yankee Stadium. And he's a tough at bat. He doesn't strike out much. He's a pretty good base runner. He's been he's some version of Brett Gardner, who was a very, very valuable player for many years. Gardner had a little more speed, developed pop over time, but really shut down left field. And I think one of the things that Verdugo does best in left field, besides just going and getting it in the air, is he does a great job of holding long singles to singles instead of doubles. It says something about angles, hustle, paying attention, and he's been a real net positive for them at almost the midway point this season.
What's weird is that the knock on him from Alex Cora last year was the hustle and the energy, but that's exactly what he's brought to the Yankees is that hustle.
Well, he brings energy. Every once in a while you see something else that I think could probably annoy him. But again, the question is, so complementary players to me what are their atmosphere? So I think you mentioned a name. I think on a really good team, IKF is a helpful player. If he's your 10th or 11th man, he's a really helpful player because he does things well. He puts the ball in play. He is a good defender at multiple positions. He's a very good base runner. But on a bad team, what is that? It just those smaller things. And so then what you don't do, or maybe some negative body language or something, tends to show up a little more out of frustration, or you're nitpicking, etc. So I do think complementary players in every sport, need the great players to play well. Well, the Yankees' best players are Soto and Judge. They'd be in the top 4 in the MVP, those two guys right now. So they're playing great. I think it is easier to live under that umbrella. It's why I think the starting pitching is such the story of the year for the Yankees, because they've done it without Cole, who is the protective umbrella. Hill has pitched like Cole, which is an amazing thing, that he is literally going to hand the baton. If he did nothing else this year, and of course the Yankees need him to do a lot more, Hill will have absolutely fulfilled at the highest A+++ level what the Yankees could have dreamed of, any team could have dreamed of, because he's as good a pitcher as there's been in the American League this year. He's there with Skubal and Lugo and a few other guys, and it's been spectacular. But positionally, like I think Volpe's rise this year is a little easier because he's sitting in front of Soto and Judge. Nobody wants to walk Anthony Volpe.
Right. Especially with the speed, too. If I could ask, just leave on a trade deadline question, because we got into that a little bit last segment. Buster only brought it up, too, on the broadcast. He said Mason Miller, he thinks, will be available at the deadline. Do you think that he'll be available at the deadline, Joel? Is that someone that the Yankees can target?
Yeah, I think the A's are not religious about anybody, ever. And more than ever now, they're playing for 2027 or 28 whenever they're moving into Vegas, or we think they're moving into Vegas. That's a lot of 103 mile an hour fastballs between now and then for Miller, who I think they would assume probably breaks down. So unfortunately, this is the world we live in. Sometime between now, his value will never be higher. They need lots and lots of stuff. There are lots of teams that believe probably if they could lock down the last 3 to 6 outs of a game, could win a championship this year. The Dodgers, the Brewers, the Yankees, the Orioles. Most of these teams have very good farm systems. The Phillies. I think I know their people well enough to know they're going to listen. And then they're going to put an incredibly high price point on him. They're going to have to get $1.25 for $1. And if somebody gets to $1.25, I think they'll do it because they also live in an environment where what's the criticism? Well, they have a nice fan base, but they've shown they don't give a shit about their fan base. So they're doing everything to tilt towards Vegas. And this would be an ultimate tilt towards Vegas move.
Okay, maybe we see that then. That would be interesting. That would obviously be the target if you're the Yankees, I would think.
Yeah.
One of the best relievers in baseball.
Yeah.
Definitely will be something to watch. Tommy, thank you so much for giving us your stat, man.
Yep.
All right, Joel, let's bring this all home. Joel's notebook. I asked you to think about something for the Yankees-Orioles rivalry. If there's anything that stood out in your time covering baseball, I know that rivalry kind of predates you a little bit as a journalist, but then it came back a little bit. I just wanted to ask you, see if there's anything that stood out in your time covering baseball.
So I'm going to do the tease. You got to keep listening to the show. I'm not going to tell you the time in Camden Yards, Joe Girardi and I had to be restrained. We almost came to actual blows in his office. So you got to keep listening. That will come around when the subject for Joel's notebook is, did you ever almost have a physical fight with a manager? We'll have to do that at a different time. I'll throw in one thing about Old Memorial Stadium because I am old enough to have covered games there. Again, this is my memory of it. It feels like a lot of that press box was made of steel. It felt like when the sun went down, it went right into that press box and it would cook the steel and you couldn't touch anything in that press box. And it was like you were cooking. It was so hot in there all the time. But I want to do one from Camden Yards. I'm doing this yet again. I think on this show previously, I tried to make a case that Jimmy Key is one of the most forgotten but yet important people who linked from when the Yankees weren't good in the early 90s and his arrival for the 93 season really, along with Paul O'Neill and Wade Boggs, a few others arrived that season, really helped to change the arc of the team. And I'll tell you a game that's lost to time a little bit, which is Game 3 of the ALCS at Camden Yards in 1996. Yankees win Game 1, Jeter, Jeffrey Mayer. They lose Game 2. It's 1-1 going to Baltimore. And a little like this season, it's kind of understood. These are the two best teams in the American League. And the Yankees have kind of dominated them all year. But now it's 1-1 going to Baltimore. And they know that the Yankees have something mentally over that Oriole team. But player for player, that Oriole team was at least their equal, if not better. It was a really star-leading team. And then Mike Mussina was their ace, and he's starting Game 3 at the peak of his powers. And Jimmy Key's starting against them, and the bottom of the first inning, after the Yankees don't score in the first, goes Brady Anderson single, Todd Zeile homer. The Yankees are down 2-0 in the first inning in a tie series. They've lost home field advantage. Jimmy Key gives up one hit and no runs the rest of the way through 8 innings. The Yankees score 4 runs in the top of the 8th inning against Mussina. The most famous play, if people have it in their mind, is there's a single, I want to say Tino Martinez. Todd Zeile gets the ball and faking like he's going to throw the ball someplace else to try to get Tino Martinez, accidentally spikes it like a quarterback would to like kill the clock. And Bernie Williams comes home behind the spike for one of the key runs in the inning. Key goes, think about the game back then, 1996. Key goes back out with a 5-2 lead, goes 1-2-3 in the bottom of the 8th. The Yankees win that game. They don't lose another game in that series, and they win the ALCS and their first pennant in 15 years. And Jimmy Key pitched a game in each level of that postseason, pitched very well, won the clinching game in the World Series against the Braves. He has lost to time. He has kind of like gone off and not wanted to be like kind of talk to. I've tried a few times to reach out. He's not interested in it. You know, he could come back on Old Timers Day, and I think people of a certain age would be like, yeah, that guy. And he hasn't done it. But that game was a pivotal game in that run in the postseason. Baltimore, Camden Yards, Yankees, Orioles.
Wow.
When they were like they are now, the two best teams in the league.
That's a story. And that makes me think, Joel, who's that Jimmy Key this year? Like, who's that guy that's left over? Is it Mr. Cortez? Like, would he be that guy that has that key moment, comes up big? So, wow, that brings back some memories right there, man. 96. I was only 4 years old, but I remember I watched the highlights, obviously, as I got older, but that was fun, man. I look forward to seeing this series. We thank you so much, Joel, as always, talking Yankees baseball with us. And we're looking forward to talking to you again next Monday, man.
I thought Hogan Analytics was going to throw me off, and I was going to have to convert after London meters back into feet and yards or something. But
he teased the idea. He thought about it.
I'm glad he didn't go there. Yeah, no, I'm looking for June. This is quite a series. I'm looking forward to covering it, and I'm looking forward to talking about it next week with you.
Absolutely. We can't wait to talk to you, Joel. Thank you so much, man.
All right. Be well.
You too.